I'm waiting now and I'm looking, all these cars driving past, and every car wasn't my dad. So then I'd be by the window with my siblings, and then one by one they would leave, and I would just be there just crying.
I was able to like articulate the fundamentals of what I wanted to become a dad. And it's a work in progress, as we keep talking about, right? But it just feels so important to me, man.
And then my son said to me, I was just like, as you said, I speak to my son, like, son, sorry that dad couldn't do this, dad couldn't do that. And he was like, Dad, you do so much for us. My chest.
That's it.
This is the show we dive into everything fatherhood.
Yeah. Each episode we pick a random card with questions on it about the journey of being a dad.
This card's a bit weighted.
Oh, is it too weighted?
Yeah,
And we try our best to answer those questions and share our stories.
There's blood and things everywhere because they had to cut her open.
I feel like a failure.
I'm chatting to like 20 different dads and mums. I know their cat's name.
Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.
Let's see what today's episode brings. I've got a daughter called Zuri and she's 11 months old.
I've got 3 children. I've got boy, girl, boy. My oldest is Neron. My girl is Kyoko. And then my little son is Orion. That is 10, 6 and 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm Leon. I am a father of 2 beautiful young ladies. Malia is 11 and Araya is her birthday next week. She's going to be 9 but currently 8 right now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Nice. I'm Sayce Holmes-Lewis. I only have the one. I don't know if I can call him a child anymore. He's just turned 18. So, and his name's Cameron.
Wow, 18.
Yeah.
Different.
This is good. I feel this is good because I feel like we in here now, I think all of us are at different parts of the spectrum in terms of fatherhood. So I feel like, this is going to be a really good conversation. So I feel like the way that we're going to start this is we all got cards on the right of us or to the left on the table. What we'll do, we'll all pick up a card each and then just read out the question and we'll try to answer it as best we can, yeah?
Yeah.
I feel like I should kick us off.
Yeah.
Okay?
Kick us off, P.
All right, you ready? Okay, all right. I feel like this is nice and easy, man. No, it's not actually. No, it's not. How has becoming a father changed your perspective on life and what truly matters to you?
Wow.
Wow.
Deep. I think I can start
Yeah?
with that. And I think for me, it's because it's more fresh. I feel that things are still fresh. So both births of my daughters didn't go to plan. Didn't go to plan whatsoever. And I think in that moment, when a woman gives birth in general, you never think that she's putting her life at risk or her life at danger giving birth. We just think as a man, you think, just women, they get pregnant and then they give birth. You never think, this is like, they're actually putting their life at risk with every child that is born. And, so I think because of the complications, the first one was an emergency C-section. The second one was a 3rd degree tear. So when I was looking at both of them, I think as a father, my wife was still under. She had to have the emergency C-section. She was still under. They just came and gave me a baby. We didn't even find out. We didn't want to find out the sex. So I was literally holding this baby for about half an hour doing skin to skin until I found out that I even had a daughter. And I was just this little life is looking up at me and I'm looking back at it and it's like, I've actually got to provide for you now. I've got to protect you. I've got to guide you. I've got to look after you.
How old was you as well at that time?
28.
Wow, okay.
28, which sounds, when we was in hospital, I think they said to us, you're quite old parents.
Yeah.
It's quite old. You're deemed as
They
old
say
parents
that.
at 28.
Wow.
But it was our first, and I think the experience, if I'm just being honest, I felt so lonely. I was just in a room with the mother-in-law, but you don't know what's happening. You just don't know what's happening, and you're just praying that everything's going well. And big up to the cleaner at the hospital that said to me, I can hear crying. So I knew the baby had come out and baby was fine, but then kind of my mindset then turned to, well, how's mum going to deal with things and everything that comes with that? So to kind of answer the question a bit, it's, I think once you look down into those eyes and realize that you have to provide, you have to be this person to do everything, I felt a sense of pressure, but it was a good pressure that I feel probably allowed me to grow as a man and then become a father. And I think people always talk about maturity within guys and stuff. When I had my first daughter, I can definitely tell you I matured. Yeah, definitely.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
In terms of the experience that you had in the hospital,
Yes.
did that affect how you saw the life you're stepping into as a father? Or do you feel like if there was no complications, you would still feel the same weight and responsibility? Like, how did that moment?
It definitely affected everything, I have to say. I was so thankful, even of just the nurses. And I know it's their basic thing of just, you know, you just think... I think we're men and we don't maybe frequent hospitals as much as we should and stuff and get all our checkups and do these sort of things. And maybe more so as fathers, we should do it now. But in that moment, I was so thankful for all the nurses, just from their round, their help care and everything they done, and just... almost keeping me calm as well. You know, when they say we're going to press this button, and a lot of doctors and nurses are going to come running from everywhere, and they pressed it, and 15 doctors, nurses, other people came from everywhere. They're running with us down. You know, it's, for me, it's almost like, it's like a movie, and you're like, is this real? And you know, you're not even like having the time to stop to think that, oh, what's actually going on here? So I think looking at everything in the way in which transpired, for me, it really changed my perspective. And as I kind of alluded to right at the beginning, we just don't realize what the women go through and how it changes them and everything. You know, as much as I'm observing, I couldn't have even tried to imagine, even right now, what my wife must have been going through at that time, you know, from her perspective, because I can only think of my perspective. It's the first time in my life as a man I've ever felt helpless. There was nothing I could do.
In that moment, you realize like what, like just the beauty of women, just what they can do, and even just like there was a moment with us where I remember there was a time where I was like, okay, it's like getting to like, it was like 3-4, no wait, it was like probably 7-8 hours now of you know, of just the experience of just, you know, waiting for us to get dilated and stuff, and then it got to a certain place where I could tell my partner was really exhausted, and I was like, ooh, like how can she? I can't see how she can do this right now, because she hasn't had no sleep, she hasn't eaten, nothing. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, as a like, how do I help? And it's what you said a second ago in terms of the uselessness. I felt useless, but I mean, my thing was that I just was like, we got into the bathtub and she's there, and I'm just, I honestly, I just took control. Like I was like, no, for real, I was looking at her and I was just like doing the breathing exercises. All of that stuff really helped, you know. But just talking of to you know, together, we'll kind of just breathe in, like in for 6, out for 4. All of the, I'm probably getting it wrong, but honestly, it was so magical. But I was scared because of that feeling of, one, being useless, and 2, just looking at the stats of things and stuff like that, and just making sure that, you know, whatever I can do, whatever is in my control, I just want to look after her and take control of that. And I remember when baby was born, I remember, man, I just cried, man. I just cried so hard.
Just to touch on what you were saying, I had the same 2 problems. Okay. So, well, it wasn't a tear. It was going to be a tear, and they was going to have to cut my first trial Neron with his mum. Had to cut her open. We done the pool birth as well. And I know this is off on the tangent, but I think it's quite important. That hospital experience. It was an interesting one. Your protective, like, characteristics come out, because it's a new experience for you. Your wife's going through something.
How do you mean by that? So, like, as in, like, because I probably was the same as well. Like, I was ready to, like,
it's,
you know, I'm just on guard, like, not to bad up people, but no, that's the wrong way to think of it. But I was very vigilant in terms of what they were saying, like very diligent towards what I had to do. Like, I was very like, okay, like making sure, is this good for our plan, you know? Sorry.
No, I think, well, as a first-time father, it's important that you say that, because you have that defensiveness, because you're new to the experience. There was a lot of things that I was naive to, or I didn't know how this whole thing went. So even, it's funny you say about the doctors running in. I was fast forward quite a bit, but the same thing you say, nurturing and care. I remember massaging my 2 oldest mum's back. To the point my arm felt like it was gonna fall off. But that was my way of like being protective. Like, her back was hurting, and I'm massaging. My arms just dead. It's gone past dead, and doing that. And then we had a pool birth, and it was like taking 16 hours, and it was time. It was ages for it, and she was going through it, and then the doctors would put her in a toilet. Then they took her off onto the floor, and this being my first time experience, as much as I'm helping, I didn't know there was anything wrong. So the same thing that you're saying, I took it completely different. So they were like, Nicole push, and I was like, okay, this is normal. She's pushing, right? They're trying to get the baby out, but I didn't know there was an issue. So they said, you need to push now. Still like, okay, that's what you're pushing. Then they press something, 12 doctors come running in, and I was like, okay, maybe this is just, you know what I mean?
I get. It's your rationale is trying to like trying to suppress the fear. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you don't want to believe too quickly. Like, there's issues are. Issue. You want to know that it's in control all the time. Isn't it?
And then she was. I remember being by her face. She's on the floor at this point on some kind of beanbag, something. There's blood and things everywhere because they had to cut her open in the end of the scissors. And she said, babe, how's everything looking? Does it look fine? I looked down. It looks like
You
so.
never do that, yeah? You don't do that.
Hey, it looks like so. I said,
man.
yeah, everything looks fine, babe. But yeah, and then I'll get onto the C-section maybe later because the mum of my youngest, basically she has to have C-sections because her last 2 children were C-sections. So that experience, and she signed on the form junior doctor, which I didn't know. So when they went to go inject her in her spine, I see her, and it's like, remember my second child, I was more defensive to skip that, but that was so easy, and I was ready now because I had really bad experiences with the hospital staff, how things were going, and that's something maybe we speak about on another episode. But then my last one, same thing, C-section, and she got in the spine, and I was about to step in with that defensiveness, and the doctor took foresight, said, look, let me. I'm thinking that's her spine. She could, like you said, it's their lives. Like if he actually hit a nerve wrong, she could have maybe not walked again. It's that serious. But to go on to the question of like how, being a father has effectively changed my perspective on life and everything. For me, I became a dad at 21, and I feel like I really understood the meaning of family. And as men, I feel like we're out here. Some people are having fun. Some people are doing what they're doing, and we've all had different experiences with our like fathers, if they were in or out of our lives, how that dynamic with mum and dad was. But it made me realize, so this is why there's a union between man and woman, and this is the foundation. Because once I separated, when I'm raising my children, this is what they need, and it changed my perspective in terms of being very. Obviously, I need to provide and have that kind of sensibility, but it really changed my perspective on the family unit and how important that is for a foundation of a child. And that's where I think my real turning point happened, where I'm like, this all makes sense now.
Would you say your perspective changed like along the way, or like
You know, whilst you guys were sharing your stories, my story is totally different. So I was just thinking about how I'm going to word it and how I'm going to express it, because it's not something that I've routinely spoken about in a public forum. But my son, obviously, Cam's 18, but his mum and I were together for about 2.5 years before we had him, but I didn't actually know I was having Cameron. So I only found out after he was born, which was a very difficult situation for me because I was only 23, living my life. We wanted children, and things just didn't work out. And what you're talking about, the foundation, the balance, and that union is very, very important. So we broke up, and it wasn't a really good breakup. It was just really difficult for us both. And there's a lot of complications in and around that. So I had an inkling that we might be having a child, but she wasn't totally sure, and nor was I. So it wasn't until he was born, a week later, I saw him a week later. I actually got a call on the day, or as a text message saying, I've just had your son. And it was like, what?
Wow.
One day I'm just out here living my life, enjoying a 23-year-old, learning how to navigate life, and then next minute I've got this little baby in my arms. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. It was a bit of a shock, but I was in a lot of turmoil because I had to quickly get my mind around, I've got this boy here who I now need to provide for, and it just changed my perspective totally on life, because when we're in our early 20s, late teens, we're very selfish. Yeah. That's just natural. But when he was in my arm, I remember holding him just thinking, this is mad. Like I'm a dad now. You know, my mum's a grandmother now, and she wasn't happy. But but it was just one of those things. So it was just changed my whole perspective, and I had to learn on the job. I didn't have that 9 months or 10 months preparation that most fathers would have. So literally, I was having to work through that and try to navigate, because I was in another relationship at that point. So I had to then share that news with my current partner. And again, it was just mad, because I'm trying to regulate relationships. And it was.
This is a big question. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is that your current partner now?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's tough.
So but my current my wife, should I say, my current partner, she's
I love that.
But she's been amazing the last 3 years that she's been in our lives, and she's that secondary mum to Cameron, and really helped me to raise him in this last 3 years. So it was a really, really difficult period of my life, you know, because as I said, I was just trying to make sense of it, but it refocused me in a way that I'd never been focused before. And I knew that it wasn't just about me, so I had to grow up very quickly.
I feel I relate to that in terms of just the kind of like trying to prepare yourself. And was there any times where you wasn't quite like because you're taking on this new experience and this new challenge, but were there days where you just didn't have everything together, like you were there trying to, were there low days, you know, and how did you bounce back from those days is what I'm kind of asking really, in terms of that pressure. How did you rise up from the moments where you felt like this is a bit too overwhelming?
Oh, this is a whole other episode, because it was literally it was very difficult, because being in a relationship, again, I had to navigate that, and then I had to navigate the relationship now between my son and his mum, and there was a lot of emotions all over the place, and I was trying to figure out what I need to do and what boundaries I need to put in place to make sure then access, because we weren't living together, and then making sure that my current partner was okay. So it was turmoil for about 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It was very difficult, because people that know me during that time, getting access to see my son was majorly difficult. And I'm not one of those guys, you know, I don't respect men that don't look after their children regardless of the situation. But I'll be real, there were certain times that I felt like giving up, because it was being made difficult for me to see my own child, and I wanted to be readily there for him no matter what, but it wasn't being respected, so it was hard, man.
Sorry, I know we're going to jump on another question in a second, but it was just on that point you mentioned there. I spoke to a couple of dads recently, and it's not that I justify men who aren't there when raising their kids. I now feel like I can see into the spectrum and understand where they crumble inside. And it may not be for every dad out there, of course, you know, in terms of that do this, right? But like I said, I feel like the dads who do crumble inside, in terms of just imploding with the emotion of we know what's going on, I understand a little bit more to the psyche of why they do run, you know, in the moments. But like I said, I don't it's not justification, and I don't agree to it. And I feel like it's things like this, obviously, that where we're trying to help each other, to support each other, to make sure that we are stronger, you know, through these moments and stuff.
Well, to touch on that, and I want to ask a few questions as well. Like you said, I've had that thought. I'm like, okay, now being a dad and that dynamic between partner, look, you didn't even know. So when there's some dads that do bail and etc., like I said, I've been very present for all three of my children, and it's not something that I personally condone. But there's an understanding of, you don't know what that dynamic was, and obviously there's a responsibility once you have sexual intercourse with somebody that you need to take responsibility for. But like you said, some people are fighting to even stay in their children's lives. Sometimes, like for example, this is a very cliche example, but it's real, where say if the father was doing gang life, doing something that's not so great, the mother liked him then, but now she has a child, her maternal instincts kick in and be like, well, he's taking him round certain places that's now dangerous. So it's like now there's a conflict of like, am I going to let my child be with him while he's doing that? And then the dad now has a conflict where he wants to see the child but he can't, and he just gives up. So there's so many different circumstances that you're talking about. But one thing I wanted to say that was quite interesting, Sayce, was I had that experience with a lot of my children, I feel like, through pregnancy. And it's annoying that even got taken from you in a weird way, because I feel like that was some of the best times I had with some of my partners, because it's the intimacy that you have to sit down and support them with. How did you deal with that? Because I know, like, even when you talk about provision, as a man, you have 9 months to start reconciling in your head, like, okay, these are my deficits. Here's the things I'm going to get. Like, okay, I'm going to have to change everything.
That's in one of the questions, by the way.
I'm like, 9 months before, you're like, oh, okay. Like I said, I'm not just like, oh, yeah, I want to be an artist. I'm going to do... It's like, okay, I need to make some money now. I need to make some serious decisions on time. And even in that 9 months, I remember doing packages. We got the cot together, the buggy, all them packages together. Now you just been hit... couple days after, like, how did you deal with that side of provision? Because for you, like you said, you didn't have that preparation. Like, how? How?
I look back on it sometimes and I don't even know how I got through, but I'm a very determined person. And when I've got an obstacle which other people may see that they can't get past, I'm like, I'm getting past that regardless. And I'm just so determined. I get that from my mum. You know, growing up on a council estate on the Ellsbury estate, watching my mum struggle every single day by herself, pretty much, when my dad left at the age of 8. That was an inherent trait that I took on, and I couldn't fail this young man. He didn't ask to be here. He didn't ask to be in this situation, so there was no choice. So I was in a deficit model for a long time, because again, I'm trying to navigate the complex nature of the lack of relationship with his mum to make sure that I see him, but then I've got to provide for him and make sure that I give him the emotional support and love that he deserves, you know. And it was hard, man, as I said, like trying to get access. And then when I had him the first time, which was a month after he was born, I had him at my house with my mum, and it was just like, wow, this is my little boy, and I'm waking up during the night making his bottle, and I'm like, but I'm the eldest of 7 children, so in terms of, you know, being a father, I was pretty much that from a young age. So looking after my siblings, and I had my little cousins, so I was very adept at working, you know, having babies and knowing what to do. But it was still like, this is my little boy. When I was driving in the car with him the first time, I'm a fast driver. I was driving about 2 miles an hour. I was like, no, like, bro, you back off, like, bro, stop there. You know what I mean? Like, I was on a madness, man, so protective. So it was just work in progress, bro. I'll be real with you. It was real work in progress, and I had to really dig deep inside of myself to understand what I needed as a child, and then replicate that to the best of my ability for Cameron. And because my dad was in and out of my life, so I never want him to feel the way that I felt. So it was hard, but we got through, man.
That's I think that's part of a blessing that you have, though. And I'm just going to kind of talk about a different perspective, because you had a son. Having 2 daughters, my mind was blown, because first and foremost, someone already told me from my secondary school days, you're only going to have girls, you know, God's going to teach you a lesson. I was like, okay. So I got girls. And I think now when I look at things, we're all man. We know how men's minds think. You see what I'm saying? So having 2 daughters now, my mind, I'm like, what's she going to go through? I know that men will say X, Y, and Z and do X, Y, because we're men. We've been there. We've lived everything. So it's like it's a difficult position now to be in, because I'm thinking, how do I protect my daughters now? And it's a tough balance. It's a fine line between, I want them to live and I need them to experience life. You know, I want them to have the failures as well of life and understand that. But I'm gonna be there. It's like, I'm giving you 90% to fail, but at 10% just before your face actually hits the ground, I'm going to be there to support you. But it's about allowing them that 90%, which is difficult sometimes to fail, because sometimes you can only grow through the failures sometimes. And I don't want to be one of those parents necessarily to mollycoddle my kids and make them think like, you know, the world's a great place. And it's, you know, I can't do that, because that wasn't my upbringing. I never grew up like that. Again, pretty similar to Sayce, but the other way around. I left my mum at the age of 8 and went to go and live with dad at the age of 9. So it's a total different experience. You know, I only knew it from a man's perspective, so to speak. My upbringing was very much alpha male. Everything was empathy, and being empathetic wasn't a thing for me. So even now as an adult, I struggle with it, but I can definitely say that my girls have definitely helped me to be a bit more empathetic. My wife has helped me to be a bit more empathetic. But when I look at everything, you know, because I know what we have to go through and what we have to navigate, because I've been through it all. From a man's perspective, however, it's difficult, and I always look at the road ahead like I'm a bit scared, because I'm like, am I going to navigate this, and am I going to get it right, if you know what I mean? So that's another daunting thing that I think as a man that has 2 daughters and a father, you have to navigate.
On that note, should we try and hit the next question?
Next
Because I
question.
know,
Cool.
we're touching on some good topics. All right.
Oh, it's a big one.
Okay.
Looking back to the moment you first found out you were going to be a father, what emotions did you go through? What was there a specific moment or story that stands out from that time?
Do you have any?
I don't mind going. Well, I've had 3 different children. Boy, girl, boy. Different, as in my youngest is with a newer partner, and then my 2 oldest was with my childhood sweetheart. And each one of them is different. Experiences for me, like I said, the labours were different. The first one was traumatic without me knowing, and you know what, this is a very important point. I think we touched on it slightly, and this is one that I think will resonate. And I remember a lot of my friends are becoming fathers now, and I spoke to them about that time in the hospital. It's so important, and I'll speak on all 3 labours real quickly. The first one, I was naive to the process. I remember after when my kid's mum, the 2 oldest, had to be cut open or sliced, so his shoulder didn't get stuck because they're talking about breaking his shoulder and all that stuff. I remember she had to go off after that and have her operation. And I saw the midwife with my son doing stuff, cleaning him. You know, they do that they're on the scales and that stuff. So I'm like, cool. Been here now, 30 minutes gone. I'm like, okay, when am I gonna get my son? Just keep on going. The time's going. I'm like, okay. And she's with my son, so I'm waiting courteously, thinking let them do their due diligence. He looked a bit blue at first because of I think he was losing a bit of oxygen and stuff like that. So I thought, cool. And then eventually we got taken into the room where she was at, and I didn't realize the midwife was still had my son playing with him. I didn't realize the midwife was waiting for my son to be with his mum first.
Skin to skin. Yeah.
Skin to skin. But my frustration was, you've been with him for an hour. It's not his parent. So if he's gonna be with somebody, let him be with me for that hour or for that time being. And because of her own mind and what she wanted to do, she kind of robbed me of that first experience with him for a bit. And it frustrated me because I was naive to the process. And then until I saw what happened, I'm like, when he's here and I went to console him naturally as his dad, I didn't have that experience. That she was trying to do it. And then he got handed to the mother about an hour and a half later. So in that circumstance, I thought there should have been some more discretion. And this is why I realised as men, you have to speak up. Then further on that experience, my son had jaundice. So he was in hospital we had to stay in there for 6 days. And I remember she was still recovering. So I had to look after him in that time, doing the bottle runs every 2 hours. You walk out into that kitchen, the lights just blinding you when you've been in the dark, and then you're feeding him and etc. etc. And I remember sitting in the chair just like this for the 6 days, and I stayed with her. And every time I wanted to eat, I'll venture out for an hour, but I made sure I was by her side. The hospital didn't treat me like I was even a part of this process. It was very like, as a dad, you have no space in this position, even though I'm actually keeping my son healthy and tending to my partner. To the point, I don't know what happened, but maybe because I was sleeping in this chair, my feet swelled up. And I'm not someone whose pain's not too bad for me. I was in excruciating pain. So I said to him, look, I don't know what's going on, but I can't walk. Literally walking on my feet was so painful, I couldn't even explain the pain. I said, can I have some ice packs? Oh, we don't have that. I'm like, what? You don't have an ice pack or anything to help me in the hospital? And that's where they left it at. So I had to hobble down to A&E. I could barely make it down there. Went to A&E, waited. They said the same thing, which was strange. And they didn't really take me seriously. And I had to then hobble to the shop in excruciating pain and then get myself some ice. And I think what I realised after I spoke to people, I was in the chair for so long sleeping that, you know, when you're on flights and stuff, and they say you have to cut off your leg if it gets too serious. That's what I was going through. And there was also certain bits of my partner was like, what's going on? She was having heart palpitations because being in the hospital was making her nervous, but then we're trying to get out. It was a lot going on. So I speak to the doctor at the reception. It was just so much that was going on that once I realised what the experience was, I was so frustrated, and I was like, next time I go in, I know how this goes. So I'm not going to let this happen again. And the procedures and how things were dealt with, there was more. So when I went for my daughter, I'm ready. I know this process. I'm ready. Come in, kind of butch looking lady. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. It doesn't mean anything, but I know how this goes. So we're going to make sure my woman's protected, my children, etc., etc. Gone in, she was lovely. Absolutely lovely. Daughter flew out.
Check.
And then my final one was my newest son, who's 3 years old, and being in a C-section was very different. That time really stuck to me, because I'm like, I know it sounds really silly, but I'm not really, when it comes to gore, I didn't care. So it was like, I want to be in a room while she's getting a C-section. In my head, I was like, I'm gonna actually see her heart. I was like, I'm gonna be connected. I'm gonna actually see, and it sounds nuts. I was like, I don't mind. That's interesting to me. I love science. So I remember I was in there with all my doctor stuff on while she's doing it, and they had put like a veil up, and after the little juke in the spine, I'm like, yo, what's going on? And she's fine now. She's been put to sleep, and they're operating. And then the doctor's like, most dads are not good at it. They say they are. I said, no, I want to see. So I gone to stand up. He tried to do a strong arm, but the gym was prevailing. So he stood up straight. I looked over the thing. I just realised it was just like a little... Like, you don't see nothing. It was so dramatised. But it was a whole different experience going through that. And it was just amazing to see, like you said, what these women have to do each time, going through all three of those experiences. But yeah, I think the most important thing to new fathers, just as a bit of advice around that story was that when you go to that hospital, speak to other dads prior and just really make sure you're doing the best. Cause I even had an experience with my 3-year-old when I was walking through the hospital, and I had him in my hand because she's recovering from a C-section now. And the doctors come to me. She said, I told you not to be in here. I told you not to be walking around your son. She has never spoken to me ever. She's like, I told you about this. And she started being really rude. And I said to her, in jest, I was like, the safest place my son is with me in my arms, innit? Don't worry about it. Just trying to diffuse the situation. Then she just went off on me, like, but in a way that was very personal. I don't know what she had going on. And I really had to stand my ground. I said to her, don't ever speak to me like that. And it's just a whole feeling sometimes in the hospital. Just really make sure that you know that this is your son, this is your woman, because when things go wrong and your woman might be in danger and saying, look, I need the baby to come and I'm in harm, trust your voice, trust her voice.
Even that, just to kind of touch on what you're saying, I think the best thing to new dads out there is just preparation as much as you can, really, isn't it? I know, like, even the hospital bag and having that obviously packed and stuff for that, but for me, we didn't have, we had, like, my wifey did amazing. She packed everything properly, like, she had all the baby stuff. It was my bag that was probably lacking. No, for real. And I like, the things I probably needed was, just little things like just what food I wanted to have in my bag, because the hospital food will be a certain know standard and things like that, right? And this is not to knock hospitals, of course, and even what you're saying, like, I had a similar experience in terms of just like one nurse was a little bit, like, I was actually trying to get my partner food, and she thought I was trying to get the food for myself, and then the way that she spoke to me, her approach was a little bit, it was way off, and I didn't rise up to it and nothing like that. But one thing I do think about a lot of the, in those departments and stuff, it's such a high pressured emotional job, dealing with everyone's important. Everyone's important. Like, don't make me feel less important than the people next door and stuff. And if that person's got a cup of tea, then why is not my, so I get, like, maybe there's a lot of pressure for everybody, really, and you're trying to navigate that situation. But I think for me, just to say to other dads out there, it's just, like, I wish I had a couple like Lucozades in that bag as well, just to kind of keep the energy going, because I like a little bit like you. Your feet was hurting, but my lower back was hurting, because I was lifting up wifey and trying to help her move, and I didn't know this stuff. I didn't know that to help her, like, with the dilation, it's like you have to keep moving, and that's what helps, and just trying to get her to relax as well, and all these kind of things there, right? So for me, it was just to have a few more things in my bag, maybe, like, prepped as best I can, and everything else. And what you're saying, it's like you have to just go with the flow, go with the punches, and try and make the best out of the situation you can. And one thing I would say lastly is, like, with wifey, we were there overnight, and we were trying to leave the next day, but my partner, she's not eating food yet, she's still throwing it up, basically, and she couldn't drink anything as well, so she looked really weak, and it was getting to a place where they were going to keep us in for another day. And I could see what that was doing to her emotionally, even me.
That was the same thing that happened.
And then one stage, it was like 4:00 in the afternoon, and it was kind of get to that place where the doctors come in and check her again, and I think I looked at her, I said, babe, you need to eat that chocolate bar, like, now, like, you need to, on a real one, like, I'm gonna have to now start really not dictating, but, like, kind of helping manage the situation, because I can see that if you don't eat and you don't show, and I even said to her, even if you don't eat it, you need to act. you need to start acting that you are good, because I know you want to get home, and I know when we get home, with your mum right now, she's gonna make you food. Like, we can start to really help you and support you, but being in here with those lights as well, it's not a place sometimes I don't feel like you can completely relax, and I don't feel it's a place where mothers can really start recovering properly in terms of that journey. They need to get home in their environment with their food and things like that, and just, as a family, as a village, we start to do the necessary things there.
If you don't have any preparation, then you know who to come to, which is me.
I experienced my mum's heartbreak.
I always wanted my dad in the house. And it was always like, sometimes I wake up, dad's there. Other days, dad's not there.
The last couple of days, I've been saying to some people, like, I feel like a failure, and it's mad, I know, but I feel like I failed.
Fatherhood isn't something you complete.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? Like, it's an ongoing journey.